Hey there, I can't sleep, so let's talk about the most misunderstood signs. And technically, I'm putting most misunderstood signs at the bottom, so really what we're ranking is most understood signs, I guess. The reason for that is because I don't want to glorify being misunderstood. I feel like that's kind of, we tend to associate the top with being better and the bottom with being worse, I guess. But of course, just like with anything else in astrology, there's a pro and a con to everything. But anyway, let's get into it. So we're gonna go in alphabetical order because honestly, going from Aries to Pisces disturbs me for some reason. It's just too predictable. It's too normal. I prefer this alphabetical order. It's a really strange order if you actually take into account the meanings of the signs. And it actually kind of makes sense in some ways. But anyway, so starting out with Aquarius. Aquarius is one of the most misunderstood signs. Like Sun, for example, is in detriment in Aquarius. The how well the Sun does in each of these signs definitely does have a lot to do with their meanings. I think in general, but especially with this particular ranking. Of course, it's not just about sun signs, but at the same time, in some ways it is not about people's sun signs, but the signs themselves. I think we really can understand them through the sun transiting those signs, if that makes sense. So anyway, Aquarius is known for being the black sheep. They're known for being kind of contrary. Aquarius, any people who have major placements in Aquarius, they are painfully aware of how different they are from other people. So that's something that is often very challenging. But at the same time, it's something that many people with Aquarius placements learn to embrace, embracing that individuality, that difference. Next is Aries. Aries is going to be completely on the other side of the spectrum. Aries is traditionally regarded as the first sign in astrology. So Aries is very straightforward, very black and white. I would almost go as far as to say that Aries is probably the most understood sign. Sun is exalted in Aries, so this is a much easier sign, especially for the Sun. Of course, it does depend on what planet we're talking about. But Aries is the first sign. It's the first time of year where there's more daylight than darkness, and the daylight is still increasing. So that's why the Sun is so powerful here. It's a very potent sign, and it's potent right off the bat. Aries doesn't have to necessarily develop itself a lot in order to be strong or to be understood. It just is that way naturally, if that makes sense. Of course, Aries has other downfalls, but yeah, being black and white, being straightforward, being readily understood, that's definitely one of Aries' strengths, I guess you could say. Next is Cancer. So Cancer is going to be a little bit more difficult to rank. Cancer is a cardinal sign. I think generally speaking, cardinal signs will rank as more understood. But Cancer is a water sign. Water signs are very deep, sensitive, emotional. And so, of course, with all those emotions, I think there is that potential to be maybe misunderstood. Oh, this is tough. I didn't really plan this out beforehand. I'm going to say average. I'm going to say average. I don't think everyone can understand Cancer's emotions. Like, Cancer is regarded as the most emotional sign, and I think that may be a huge area of misunderstanding because the rest of us, we're just not as emotional as you Cancer. So how can we possibly, understand your level of emotion? But on the other hand, being so aware of their emotions, Cancer, it's not a mystery to Cancer what they feel, if that makes sense. They tend to be very aware of that. And also, being a cardinal sign, Cancer is an expert when it comes to projecting their emotion and leading with it. So basically, there's a lot going on either side for this sign. I think they can be very well understood. Female Cancers in particular, females with Sun or Moon in Cancer, I think have a much easier time with this than males because, in our society traditionally it's more accepted to be emotional and intuitive as a male than a woman. So that has a difference too. I've noticed female Cancers tend to be way more outgoing. Male Cancers tend to be more shy, more reserved, etc. So that makes a big difference here too. Next is Capricorn. I would say Capricorn is going to be well known. Capricorn, Putting them in between Aries and Cancer, I think, is actually very appropriate because I'm really struggling to line that up. Because Capricorn is a cardinal sign, much like Aries or Cancer, so these are all leaders in very different ways. We talked about how Cancer is a water sign, so it leads through emotion, which can be well understood, but is also not always. Capricorn is cardinal earth, so that would suggest being very practical, being very consistent, and leading with that consistency. Like, Capricorn is very straightforward, very black and white. The only reason why I wouldn't put Capricorn higher is because Capricorn is also very private. I think Capricorn prefers to not completely be understood. They keep certain things under wraps. So because they are private, they rank a little bit lower, but other than that, they're generally very well understood, very direct. Some signs view the world as more black and white, more I don't know, just more simplistic. Other signs view the world as many different shades of gray with much more nuance, and then that's where you get more complexity and the potential to be more misunderstood. But Capricorn's definitely in that more kind of black and white camp, I guess you could say. Okay, Gemini. Gemini is going to be all the way at the bottom. Gemini is the sign of duality, right? And I think this is a concept that is difficult. Gemini is one of those signs that views the world with many different shades of gray, lots of nuance. I don't think people always realize how nuanced Gemini is. Gemini also tends to be kind of shy or nervous. They tend to have a little bit of anxiety, so that can kind of get in the way of being understood as well. But also many people I think view Gemini as inconsistent, which, okay, they are. But maybe actually the word I was looking for is people view Gemini as contradicting themselves a lot, because Gemini, I don't think Gemini always feels like they're contradicting themselves. They're just viewing things in a more nuanced way. They can see every kind of side to the situation. They can see many different angles to everything. So again, not everyone has that kind of awareness. Not everyone is receptive to that sort of awareness. I think astrologically people think they understand Gemini better than they actually do. Gemini, like for instance, Gemini isn't always talking a lot. Like sometimes they are. But again, there's also that shyness or nervousness. So many people with Gemini placements are very shy, very quiet, but they can also have that capacity to talk a lot as well. Last thing I'll say about this is that when I do these tier videos, I notice that there's two signs that tend to be all over the board. They tend to be, like for instance, Gemini can be very understood. They can be excellent communicators, excellent writers, or sometimes speakers. They do have that potential, but so there's two signs that are all over the board with most rankings. So I forgot where I was going with that, but you probably know the other sign, but if you don't, I'll try to remember to mention it when we get there. Okay, Leo is going to be one of the most understood signs. Leo's fixed fire, very straightforward, very in your face, and Sun is in domicile in Leo, so this is a very strong sign. And again, kind of like Aries, it's strong from the get-go. It doesn't necessarily have to develop a whole lot in order to be like a crowd pleaser, for example, in order to be very well understood. They've got that down. Leo as well as Aries, I'm not necessarily saying that these are better signs than the other ones. They have their own shit to deal with. It's just that their shit that they're dealing with it doesn't tend to have to do with being understood. Like, they've got that part down. They have other problems, if that makes sense. And we won't necessarily get into that right now. It's not really relevant. Well, let me just say this. So Leo or Aries, like, I was actually thinking about this last night. So the signs when they're not doing well, when they're either really stressed or, or not very evolved, each sign will tend to be very different than the opposing sign. So for instance, Leo or Aries, they will be like extra fiery, extra selfish, for instance, not thinking about other people, not being like Libra or Aquarius would, if that makes sense. So that would be like the kind of shadow side of Aries or Leo. In a way, it's actually not a shadow at all. It's very bright. It's too bright. It's blinding, if that makes sense. Okay, Libra. Libra, I've thought about this a lot. I think Libra is actually very misunderstood. I'm gonna put them in the quirky category, but I'm tempted to put them all the way in the black sheep, in the least understood category, because I don't think people realize how difficult and complex Libra energy is. I think Libra energy is very easy for other people to experience. Like, generally speaking, like it's easy to be around someone with Libra placements because they are so giving, I guess, or at least they seem to be. They're very empathetic mentally, I guess. They come across warm, they come across bubbly, they almost seem like a water sign, like Pisces or something. And that's because of that Venus side to Libra. But at the same time, Sun is in fall in Libra. I would say this is the most challenging sun sign to have, actually, because of Sun being in fall there. It's the exact opposite of Aries. So Libra is the first sign where there's more darkness than light, and the darkness is increasing, the light is decreasing. So this is a very difficult time for the Sun. But what else? I've also noticed that around halfway through the zodiac in Virgo and Libra, I believe the energy is most complex and nuanced. And therefore, I've really noticed that the decans or the decans throughout Virgo and Libra, in my opinion, they tend to be very distinct, more so than like Pisces and Aries, for example. I think Pisces and Aries are much more raw, and I guess like spirited or spiritual. Virgo and Libra are much more detached, much more nuanced, much more complicated and complex. So my point is, depending on when you're born during Libra season or where your placements are in Libra, they may appear very different. There are certain, I forget exactly, I haven't looked into this in a while, but there's one or two decans in Libra that are more, I believe one is ruled by Venus, one is ruled by Mercury, and one's ruled by Saturn. So you have your like traditional bubbly, warm, affectionate Libra, but there's also a very studious, very intellectual, very chatty Libra, and then there's also a very stern, very stoic, very detached Libra. And all of these are part of Libra. So it's really actually much more complicated than you think. Also with Libra, it's very difficult to know, like, how is this person actually feeling? Are they feeling? I don't think they always know. They're so focused on just absorbing the energies of everyone else. I think that's the challenge here. But so yeah, you can definitely get lost. I've gotten lost in trying to understand the complexity of Libra. Like, how can you truly relate to everyone as much as Libra does? That, I don't know, I think it becomes kind of like a wormhole or a rabbit hole. It's depending on how you look at it, Libra has like the strongest ego in order to empathize with such a range of different other energies, or Libra has the weakest ego, and that's why they kind of just absorb anything they're around. You can have either perspective. I think with any of the air signs, there's an element of duality, and they appear to contradict themselves. All the glyphs in the air signs have two lines in them, which I think is very meaningful. Next is Pisces, which also has to do with duality and also has two lines, kind of, that represent the two fishes. But okay, this is gonna be tricky because, yes, I think it's not a secret in astrology that Pisces, it's the last sign. It's not always well understood. In a way, it's a little bit like Gemini because it's nuanced, it's multifaceted. Pisces can appear to contradict itself. Pisces is also very deep, being a water sign, so deep emotion, kind of reminiscent of Cancer. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of potential to be misunderstood. I myself am only just learning on a deeper level about Pisces. I've actually learned a lot about Pisces recently. I think Pisces can appear to be fake, but they aren't. They're kind of just constantly putting out different emotions and just kind of seeing what will stick, sort of, I guess. So yeah, there's a lot of complexity there. On the other hand, though, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. They're very warm, very outgoing. I also think the water signs tend to be a little bit better understood because they're more emotional. It's easier to understand people when you can connect with that feeling, more so than just trying to explain yourself through words. I think the feeling goes a longer way than the verbiage does, and maybe that's part of why all the air signs are ranked lower here, more misunderstood. Anyway, Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. I'm either thinking average or quirky. Maybe with Libra. I think they'd be on the same page as Libra. Both can be very charismatic, very well understood, yet both are also very complicated as well. I think that works. Next is Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is always fun to analyze. They are fiery, like Leo or Aries, but then they're also mutable and intellectual as well. So they're multifaceted. So we can kind of weigh the pros and cons. Being a fire sign is going to tend to make you very well understood because you have that bravery or that energy to put yourself out there. But on the other hand, being a mutable sign and being more detached than the other fire signs, that's going to make Sagittarius less understood. So I would say either average or well-known. Maybe well-known, like Capricorn. I guess that makes sense. Sagittarius and Capricorn are so different, but when it comes to this particular ranking, I do think it makes sense that they'd be similar. Kind of for opposite reasons, though. Capricorn is very black and white, yet reserved and private. Sagittarius is very outgoing and kind of just puts everything out there, but they're not black and white. They're more complicated. So very much opposites, I think, but at the same time, they end up kind of being on the same level here. All right, Scorpio. If I don't rank Scorpio as the least understood, I feel like I'm gonna get a bunch of comments like disagreeing with me. Honestly, this is tough. I'll give it to you. Yeah, Scorpio. I think everyone knows how misunderstood Scorpio is. In a way, that almost makes me want to rank them higher, because if you know that they're misunderstood, at least you understand that you don't understand them, unlike maybe Gemini or Libra, which people think that they understand more than they do, in my personal opinion. But anyway, Scorpio, yeah, it's no secret. I think they're a little bit reminiscent to Capricorn because they are very private. They prefer to keep part of themselves hidden. Yet at the same time, Scorpio is also very blunt, very honest, yet also very manipulative. How can you be seen as one of the most genuine signs, yet also one of the most manipulative? I'm still personally trying to work that out for myself. But so yeah, there's all that I wonder if Scorpio just seems so genuine that it's easy for them to be manipulative. But I do, there are people now close to me in my life that have major Scorpio placements, and they strike me as some of the most honest people. Scorpio prefers to just put the truth out there, even if it might hurt your feelings. Like, Scorpio really pisses a lot of people off for that, and even that can make them misunderstood. Telling the truth all the time can make you misunderstood. Yet on the other hand, I think Scorpio, being the sign following Libra and being a water sign, Scorpio is very socially intelligent, I think, and also a little paranoid. So I do think they definitely have that capacity to be manipulative or deceptive, or to be very tactful or diplomatic as well. There's a whole range here. There's a lot of complexity. Like I said, we're still close to the halfway point of the zodiac. Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, these are all really complex, nuanced signs, I think. So yeah, Scorpio, generally misunderstood. However, they do have the capacity to be very popular, very cool. I think the Mars ruled signs are very cool. That's the best way I haven't worked out a better way to put that. They come across as edgy, enviable. So Scorpio can be well liked. I don't know if they're always well understood though. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Taurus. So Taurus is going to be one of the most understood signs because Taurus is fixed earth. That's about as simple, salt of the earth as it gets. Taurus is very practical and straightforward and consistent, being an earth sign, but because they're ruled by Venus, that makes them a little bit more kind of popular, very well received. Taurus is very straightforward. Like these three signs at the top, Aries, Leo, Taurus, these were the easiest for me to understand when I was learning astrology. And I believe my experience is not unique. Most people find it pretty easy to understand these signs. There are a couple nuances to Aries, Leo, and Taurus, but it's kind of few and far between. Generally speaking, they're very easy to understand. They're very straightforward. Very black and white, and that's what's so beautiful about them. They're easy to relate to. It's easy to understand where they're coming from or what their stance is. And lastly is Virgo. So I hate to ruin this symmetry. I guess the only way to keep the symmetry there would be to put Virgo in the middle, but I'm not going to do that. I do view Virgo as one of the more misunderstood signs. I don't know if they'd be most misunderstood or just quirky. I'll have to do a poll for this soon. But Virgo's very analytical. Virgo's consistently said to be one of the most intelligent signs. And really, actually, that's a pattern. If you look at these bottom signs of Aquarius, Gemini, and Scorpio, these are all consistently said to be the most intelligent signs. So, of course, if you're either the most intelligent or seen as one of the most intelligent personality types, of course not everyone's going to understand you. Just like what we talked about with Cancer, if you're the most emotional sign, not everyone's going to understand your emotions. If you're the most analytical sign, not everyone's going to understand your analysis, right? So I think that definitely applies to Virgo. They are an earth sign, so they can be practical. I think earth signs generally tend to be well understood. But Virgo is dramatically different from Capricorn or Taurus, in my opinion. Virgo is much more analytical than the other two earth signs. So Virgo can get lost in analysis and thought. And again, they're one of those signs that views everything as very complex, very nuanced. Often Virgo it's like they're taking a magnifying glass to everything. They don't always see the bigger picture, but they're like zooming in on these little things and getting lost in the details. Oh, like one other thing about this too. So I noticed, I used to sell insurance for a little bit, and I noticed that there's this couple, they're both Virgo suns, but if you just ask them a simple question, like they would take so long to answer because they really put a lot of thought into it. They wanted to give you a full answer and like explain the whole background and, explain what happened before, what led to the situation or what have you. And I myself, being a Virgo, I do the same thing. So yeah, they get lost in the details. I guess that was my point. So, this is tough. Virgo, why would I not put them as most misunderstood? As long as you understand, this is an analytical person. They think a lot. You don't necessarily have to follow them for every little bit of analysis they do. But you can still understand them, I guess. That's all I can come up with. I'm just gonna put them at the bottom. And again, I think it's no coincidence. I just did a poll on, what's the most intelligent sign, and these were the 4 that were listed. And I had a couple people agree with me that those would be seen as the most intelligent, at least in the kind of like classical view of intelligence. Obviously, there's different kinds of intelligence. So if you view it that way, then there is no most intelligent sign. But I digress. So most misunderstood. Actually, one last thing about that. So these signs, I think part of why they're most misunderstood and seen as most intelligent is because they have the most nuanced take on the world. Just because you have a more simple view of things, that doesn't make you less intelligent. In many ways, that's much more functional. Gemini, Scorpio, Virgo, they're going to get bogged down in the details. They may be like paralyzed with something that's trivial in nature compared to Aries, Leo, Taurus. These are like go-getters. They get shit done. They're not going to just sit here and think about something all day. But anyway, yeah, most to least misunderstood. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want a reading, I'm always offering readings. You can check out my website. All my information is in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a great day.